Kiwi. It is now 8:41.
This was originally a US PRT base in the early days when New Zealand first came in here and took over it. But I think it doesn't matter where you go on any of our missions. Kiwis have this inherent desire to continue to build and build and build. And as a result, as you can see now, it's quite a significant installation and very practical and functional as well. So, yeah, something we inherited as we did with Ramiro. And I think everyone that comes through on their tours here wants to add some value and improve it.
It is Eye on the World with Paul Buchanan from 36-parallel.com joining us. Good morning to you, Paul.
Good morning.
And today we're talking about the withdrawal of the New Zealand Defence Force from the Bamiyan province, the imminent withdrawal, I suppose.
Yes, actually it's been announced that they're going to move up the date of withdrawal to 2013, up from its original date in 2014, and that begs the question, is the early withdrawal due to the success of the mission, or is it due to the hopelessness of the cause? And that remains very much an open question. It was highlighted by the fact that Defense Minister Jonathan Coleman went to the Bamiyan PRT to commemorate the Anzac Day celebrations, and some surprising things happened there. The mainstream media didn't pick up on it, but nevertheless, there's some important issues to be addressed and in the wake of that visit. And one would hope that sometime in the near future, the New Zealand government will clarify some of those issues involved.
So what happened when Coleman visited?
Well, the most remarkable thing, and I should say that there was a TVNZ reporter embedded with the minister, looking very natty, I must say, in his body armor and cleanly pressed shirts. And they had a meeting. It was basically a meet and greet, okay? It was not any meeting of any substance. Defense Minister Coleman was clearly there just to greet the troops, receive a haka, and then head on to Kabul. But in the course of his meetings, he was approached by 5 Afghan translators who asked for political asylum right in front of this TVNZ reporter and others. And this not only caught the minister completely unawares, but it also caught the NZDF personnel, including the commander of the PRT, completely unawares. And that raises some very interesting questions because the translators work the most closely with the NZDF personnel. They are the most trusted Afghans that the PRT works with, and they decided to hold a secret, not tell the NZDF in advance of the minister's visit that they were going to seek asylum. Now, the minister, of course, completely flabbergasted by this, didn't know what to say, and what he said actually was a bit unfortunate. He said to them that he felt that New Zealand had some responsibility towards them, but that he couldn't give them any assurances either way. Now, I'll simply say this. The New Zealand government has told us that the situation in Bamiyan is very good, that it's one of the most secure provinces in Afghanistan, that the Afghans can assume responsibility for their own security in Bamiyan. That's why the NZDF component of the PRT is going to leave early. But if that were true, why are these guys seeking political asylum? They're basically saying that as soon as the PRT leaves, they will be harmed or killed. And that raises, again, the question is, are we being told the truth with regards to the situation in Bamiyan? And I should point out that there are very credible reports from independent journalists that there have been bombings of convoys, supply convoys to the PRT, and the drivers have been summarily executed on the side of the road, that village chiefs in Bamiyan that have worked with the New Zealand Defence Forces have been killed. And, of course, the local population, seeing all of that, has to prepare itself for the withdrawal, which means that they may be less cooperative with the New Zealand Defence Forces in the lead up to the withdrawal, because they know that once the New Zealanders are gone, the Taliban will remain.
And on the other hand, we have there's some positive news coming out of there, such as from this soldier here. There's a wee clip of a soldier talking about the province of Bamiyan.
The governor has a plan to try and generate tourism in the area. I think as an area it's got a great starting point with the Buddhas and Gagola that's situated in the centre of town. So if they can develop it and get more people coming through, I think it's a good way for the local area to generate money and therefore benefit the economy in a bigger picture sort of situation.
So on one hand we've got translators looking for asylum here in New Zealand. On the other hand, we've got soldiers there talking about tourism. Who to believe, Paul?
Well, to me, it represents a lot of wishful thinking, and I should point out that the clip was made in 2009, and at that point, perhaps this particular soldier was not aware that the Buddhas have been destroyed. So what you're looking at is basically fallen rock, rather than these World Heritage statues. And two, the situation has gotten worse since then. So. But I think that's emblematic of the government's approach. It's everything is fine, everything is good, and then they're caught flat-footed by events such as these translators approaching them, approaching the minister in a very public place. One other thing that I should point out is that when Minister Coleman said that New Zealand had a responsibility towards these translators, he opened up a can of worms. And I'm sure that the ISAF partners are not going to be very happy with his comments because of the following. If it turns out New Zealand feels that it is responsible for these translators in some way, shape, or form, then that means that any cook, any driver, even the lovers of soldiers connected with ISAF can claim political asylum because of their association with the occupation forces. And needless to say, the coalition is, not prepared to receive hundreds of requests for political asylum. And for us, the fact that these 5 gentlemen have asked for asylum, they basically want a queue jump. They're arguing that they have extenuating circumstances, special circumstances that should move them to the head of the queue. Again, there's another can of worms. Are you going to allow these men in ahead of, I won't say legitimate refugees, but ahead of people who have gone through the UN process, which takes years, because they're arguing that they're going to be killed off? That presents 2 scenarios. If you let them in, then anyone who goes through the UN process to get to New Zealand will feel that they've been shortchanged. 2, if you don't let them in and they are subsequently killed off, then New Zealand comes across as a very poor ally who doesn't protect its own once it proceeds to withdraw.
And talking about that withdrawal, that's meant to happen now in 2013 and not 2014. That's a whole year earlier. So does that suggest that they're happy with things there, or perhaps things are going bad?
Well, that's the big question. The government will, of course, tell you that they're leaving early because the mission has been a success. But if you look at the larger picture in Afghanistan, it's very clear that most of the ISAF coalition is in the process of getting out sooner rather than later, and that includes the Australians, who have been very staunch allies of the Americans in this particular effort. The Americans themselves are now accelerating the timeline for withdrawal so that they will be leaving early in 2014, or at least to mid-2014, rather than at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And the United States will leave troops behind. In fact, there will be special forces troops left behind by a number of coalition partners, not New Zealand. And but as far as the nation-building process, the attempt to democratize the place, and quite frankly, the attempt to impose security across the country and restore it to Afghan hands, that all, quite frankly, has not been as successful as some of the champions in the New Zealand government have argued. And so I would say that it's a mixed blessing. The PRT has done very good things in Bamiyan, but in terms of securing it completely so that it can be returned to Afghan hands, I don't think that's occurred. And what's interesting also on that score is I just saw a report where they were talking with the governor of Bamiyan province, and he actually doesn't want them to leave early. arguing that the security situation is not ripe for them to withdraw entirely. So the governor of Bamiyan, an Afghan, wants them to stay. The New Zealand government says everything is peachy keen so they can leave, and the translators are caught in the middle.
All right, well, you can find more analysis on this now and into the future at 36-parallel.com. Also, see this as a video once more up at livenews.co.nz. But that's all for now. Thanks very much, Paul Buchanan.
Thanks.